Hi, this is Teresa Momber. Here's a look at the card I'll show you how to create in today's video. Here's a look at my new stamp set for Gina K Designs called Framescapes Winter Trees. You can see at the top is a large image. It's a framed scene image. And then below are several other images that can be used in combination with the Framescape or used individually. I'm using my new Misti stamp positioning tool, and you'll be seeing me use this a lot in the future because I think it's really handy for stamping large images and being able to re-stamp the same image in exactly the same place over and over again. I'm lining up the large Framescape image with a piece of white cardstock that's been trimmed to 4 by 5 1/4 inches and then placing those in the lower corner of the Misti. Then I lower the acrylic door until it grabs the stamp. Then that has it positioned perfectly so that every time I stamp it, it's always going to be centered just right over my cardstock. Now I want to start by stamping with a very light color because I plan to go back and stamp over my scene later after I do some sponging on it. So this first time I'm using Angel Pink by Memento. It's the lightest ink I can think of. So I'll stamp that onto the white cardstock, and then later the sponging will pretty much cover that all up. But by having it there, it'll help guide me in where I want the color to be. You can see the image is stamped very lightly on the white cardstock, but it is there just well enough for me to be able to see where everything is. And I want the sun to be peeking out between some trees, so I'm sponging very lightly using Gina K Sweet Corn ink. Next, I switch to Gina K Bubblegum Pink ink and continue sponging, working around the yellow that I'd previously sponged. I continue sponging, working all the way out until almost the entire cardstock is filled with a fairly light layer of pink. Once there's a fairly even layer of light pink all over the cardstock, I start building it up a little heavier along the top and bottom edges. Switch to Gina K Lovely Lavender ink and continue sponging, starting at the top and bottom and working your way down gradually into the lighter areas. Now use Gina K Cherry Red ink and continue sponging the same way you did with the lavender, starting at the top edges and working your way blending into the lighter areas, and doing the same thing at the bottom of the cardstock. Next, use Gina K Black Onyx ink to continue sponging. It's really important to tap off as much excess ink as you can because you want to be very careful with this dark ink. Once again, sponge starting at the top edge and work your way down, and from the bottom edge working your way up. At this point I felt like it needed just a bit more red, so I'm going back with the cherry red to keep adding a little more color. Now that I'm happy with my background, I'm putting the cardstock back in the Misti in the lower corner right where I had it before, and then I'm going to ink up my stamp using Gina K Black Onyx ink. Since the stamp is in exactly the same position as it was, and since my cardstock is pushed up against the corner of my Misti, it's going to stamp exactly over the previous image. And since this is a large image, I recommend going around all the areas of the image with a little bit of pressure to make sure the ink comes into contact with the paper all over. Next, we'll fill in some of the area below the trees using Copic marker RV14. Then switch to Copic marker RV11 and blend out some of that darker pink into the foreground. Next, we'll create some cast shadows from the trees. So draw some lines down from the tree trunks using Copic marker C3. After I get all the lines in place, I like to go back and just add some horizontal lines to just indicate the branch structure of the trees in the shadow. Go back with Copic marker C5 to deepen the color on some of those shadows a bit. One of the additional images in the Framescapes Winter Trees set is a small little cluster of 3 birds. I'm stamping that using Memento Tuxedo black ink. I stamped it once over on the right side and then twice together on the left side so it would look like a larger flock of birds. And I decided I wanted to trim the excess cardstock along the outside of my frame. So I trimmed that all down, and I'm using a marker just to darken the edges of the cardstock where it was white so it won't show up after I assemble my card. I decided to color in some wispy clouds, so I'm using Copic marker BV00 to fill those in. Then to get those clouds just a tiny bit darker in some areas, I'm using Copic marker BV11. For one final step, I'm putting a sticky note to mask off where I'd like a horizon line, and then sponging very lightly with some pink ink below that mask. Then to complete the card, just remove the mask, layer your image layer with a piece of bubblegum pink cardstock that's trimmed slightly larger than the image, and then adhere both layers to a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch black card base. And that completes today's video. Thanks for watching.